Welcome to the Leslie Monday Podcast, a show for lovers of all things science fiction in books, TV, and movies. Each week, we'll review something new or dive into an old favorite. So come join me. I'm Leslie, and it's Monday. Welcome to the Leslie Monday Podcast. I'm Leslie, and today we are going to talk about The Expanse Season 5, Episode 5, Down and Out. Now, before we get into it, I wanted to let you know, if you didn't see already, that Patrick and I did a sort of special crossover episode that got posted before this episode. So if you've been watching WandaVision, we actually covered WandaVision episodes 3 and 4, and that was the episode that got released first thing this morning. So if you saw that and thought, oh no, I'm not getting my Expanse episode, well, fear not, because I wasn't going to skip that and make you wait another week, or make you wait to a different day of the week before you got your Expanse episode. Now, if you like our reviews of that, the next one, I believe, is going to be episodes 5 and 6. And, of course, that will be back on Critics Not Cynics. And I'm sure that we will finish it out. I believe WandaVision only has 9 episodes. And I'm sure that we will be doing 7, 8, and 9 over on Critics Not Cynics as well. But go check that episode out. It's a fun time to kind of be over in my space, and then I'm the one who's editing the video, and then it's also, like he said, sometimes it's relaxing to be the one who just records, and then I don't have to worry about editing anything, editing the audio or the video. So this week he got to just record over here and not have to edit and post the episode. Also, I just wanted to give a reminder that the podcast, Leslie Monday, is available on Apple and Google Podcasts now. So if you're listening on YouTube and you enjoy my reviews or those small, quick sidebar episodes I've been doing, please subscribe to the channel and comment, give me likes, recommend it to all your friends and family. Just if you enjoy those, just let me know. And I appreciate that so much. Okay, so let's get into this week's episode of The Expanse. And this is a good episode, and it's just continuing like we have been. I'm just going to group my thoughts by characters. So we'll start with Drummer and her family, the Ships. And we see that they're just watching the newsreels. You know, they're seeing everything that's happening, that Marco has dropped those rocks, and Drummer in particular, you know, she's feeling really guilty because she's the one who had Marco and broke that tie vote in last season to allow him to leave. You know, just like her guilt over Ashford, it's kind of just getting rehashed again because she had him there in the airlock and could have spaced him, and maybe she could have saved all these people and avoided all of this. So she's definitely in that, you know, stuck in that cycle. And Oksana basically tells her, like we talked about in the episode last week, you know, you can't live backwards. You have to move forward. You can't just live in the past. And then before we leave them, we see that Marco sends them an invite to meet. So this is going to be an interesting meeting because they've been pretty steadily giving Drummer Michio's storyline from the book. So I don't think they're going to deviate from it. But this is one of those parts where I feel like if they were going to, they could maybe deviate a little bit here. As far as I recall, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if you've recently read Book 5, but I don't believe that Drummer really shows up anywhere in it. I don't believe she shows up until a later book. So we don't really know what she would have done here. And again, with them knowing that they're aiming to round things out and end it with season 6, I just feel like there's open possibility of this is a spot where I feel like if they deviated a little bit, it would fit, and maybe it would especially work with Drummer's character. but I'm probably not. But I wouldn't be surprised or upset if it did happen with her character and her meeting with Marco. But either way, how it happens, if they decide to change a little bit or if they decide to just stick with the storyline as it is, I'm still really interested to see Kamina and Marco meet, live and in person again the second time. Okay, so let's go over to Alex and Bobby. Um, Even though they're our cliffhanger ending this time around, we don't get a lot of screen time with them in this episode. We basically just see them. They're still trailing Emily Babbage. They're still getting the drive signatures and things on her fleet, and they're piecing together that Marco is the one who's buying these ships from Mars, and that the ships themselves aren't just full of weapons, that the ship itself is the weapon that's being sold. And of course, they get pinged by the Belter group, and they fire a torpedo at them. So our cliffhanger this week is, will Alex and Bobby survive this attack or not? And we have already seen main character death in the show this season. And of course, we've seen characters be killed off in previous seasons. So we know that the showrunners aren't afraid to go there. And that's another spot where I feel like they could tweak things if they wanted to and tweak the story, especially with Alex's character, which, just as an aside, if you didn't know, the actor himself he's in hot water. I haven't totally researched myself all of the claims and whatnot made against him, but I do know early on that some of them were verified as true. So there was sexual allegations against him of abuse and things like that. So I don't believe he's going to be in season 6. So if they kill off his character kind of here, or maybe he's really wounded or something, I wouldn't be at all surprised. But again, they might do that, they might not. I do believe that season 5 was already filmed and wrapped by the time those allegations came out against him. So I don't know if they would want to go back and edit things, and if they're just going to try and edit Alex's character storyline going forward. But again, this is another spot where if they wanted to tweak something, they could probably do it here. Bobby is still really integral to the story, but she's there with Alex, so we'll see what happens. Okay, now let's talk about Naomi, Marco, and Philip. Naomi, man, girl, looks like she is just in a numb state of shock. She can't believe everything that's happened to her. We see that Marco's still up to his games, playing with her and playing with Philip. I'm still just so impressed with Marco as just this master gaslighter and manipulation. I'm just really impressed with the writing and the acting, just all around. He's doing such a fabulous Keon's doing such a fabulous job. The writers are doing such a fabulous job. I'm so impressed. Every word he says is so carefully chosen, and he breaks Philip and Naomi down, always tries to turn around anything that they say back onto them. Not once is he ever accountable for his own actions. He is always the victim, and thus always the hero in every sentence, every way that he twists it. It's amazing. And I don't mean amazing like this is a role model. I'm just so impressed at the portrayal and how good I think it is. Now, if we have like psychologists or counselors or somebody out there who's a professional and maybe you have issues with the portrayal, let me know and let's talk about them. But as a layperson, I'm really impressed with his portrayal. And what's even worse about Marco is that the truths that he uses to make himself the hero can be seen as reasonable, from the outside with people who don't have the whole story. Now, of course, murdering millions of people is an extremist move. But remember his and Naomi's conversation last episode, when she says he hasn't changed, and he says that he has, because raising a child will do that. He's twisting it to make her feel guilty for leaving Philip and, oomping himself up, propping himself up. Woe is me, the single parent. Look what a good job I did. And for the vast majority of people on that ship, that's the only truth that they know. Because in their eyes, Naomi abandoned the belt. She works for and with the Inners. She has to be a collaborator. She's abandoned her family, and thus Marco's side of the story is the truth. Not knowing any of the other information that we, the viewers, know about how their separation actually went. Only like 4 people on that ship know the actual, all of the real truth. Naomi, Marco, Sin, and Carol. They know how he manipulated her and took Philip away from her. But even last season, we saw Marco manipulate that story when Drummer had him captured the first time, and he made it out like he had to take Philip away from Naomi for Philip's protection. Again, making sure he's the hero and the victim in every sentence as he lays it out. And Philip doesn't know the truth of the situation. All he knows is what Marco has told him. So it's an impressive character portrayal to me on every level. Keon, again, is doing such a phenomenal job acting-wise. And overall, I'm just so impressed. Seeing Naomi as the person who abandons everyone, it would be so easy to see her like this. Sin tells Naomi he's standing up for us, for the belt, but Marco is. Seeing Marco as a hero, I mean, he reminds Naomi, they make us thirst for water and they make us gasp for air. And it can be so easy to see someone like him who's so charismatic, who's such a good speaker, to turn a blind eye and say, at least he's speaking up for us. He's at least doing something, and they can kind of turn a blind eye to it, but he's also doing that by mass murdering millions of people. And when you're at the bottom or you're on the opposite side of things, it can be really easy to dehumanize the people that you see as the enemy, that you see as the other. But it's such a dangerous, dangerous thing to do. And we can even see in season 2, Bobby is bloodthirsty for a war with Earth. I mean, if you see her rallying up her troops, who's gonna beat the mountains into fine Martian dust and drink the rivers dry? She is gunning for it. And it's only until she gets to Earth and has all of her preconceptions and notions challenged and sees the people who are either undocumented or living on basic assistance on her way trying to find the ocean. And then, of course, she meets Nico, that she really kind of begins to understand that the issue is never usually a clear-cut black and white, here's the enemy, and here is the true hero. It's more nuanced and gray than that. Another piece of Naomi and Sin's conversation that I found really interesting is how, because of the ring gates, the Belters are also afraid of losing their culture, that they're going to go extinct. If people decide to try and live on a planet, and they can, and then they have children on those planets, they won't be Belters anymore. And how long before there are no more true, pure Belters that can only live in space? Now, I agree with Naomi's answer that it's for each person to decide for themselves, but I would be interested to know what percentage of the 45 million Belters would be able to settle on the planets, number one. And because they said that most couldn't. So if you're like a statistician or a biologist or something, or just somebody really clever with the numbers, maybe you can help tell me or figure this out. Like, what percentage of the 45 million would have to be able to live on the planet and settle on the planet for the rest of the Belter culture to go extinct? I'm just curious about the numbers. And I don't believe we actually get an answer in universe in any of the books about how many of the Belters decide to try and go down to a planet. But that's one of those questions I'd be interested, just out of curiosity's sake, to know what percentage of the 45 million would have to be able to live on the planet in order for Belter culture in its entirety to go extinct. Just curious. Does anybody else have any thoughts below? You don't have to be a mathematician, but I'd be curious to know what you all think about that, because it's curious to me. I wonder, how many would it take? That also kind of makes me think about the how long do you live in a country before you're basically from that country and nobody sees you as from your original country anymore? For example, if you come and live in America, I think it's like 20 or 30 years, something like that, before you're considered a naturalized citizen. But then everyone within this culture always sees you as the person as, oh, you're the one from, I don't know, let's say Spain. You're the one from Spain. But would everybody in Spain, if you've been living here for 20 to 30 years, think of you not as a Spaniard anymore, but as an American, a North American, or from the United States? It's just curious things like that. Like, what's the time frame before the original place doesn't consider you one of them anymore, and then the place where you're living hasn't fully accepted you as one of them either? It's all just interesting questions and things that come up when you get into this, and you're like, and it's all just in a science fiction book, and sci-fi being a genre and lowbrow and not considered classy and intelligent literature to win awards and things, which I always thought is so funny, because how can one work of fiction be more intellectual than something like science fiction that's so speculative that you can just take it out into the future and address any social question you want? But anyway, before I get carried away, let's jump back to Naomi. On the ship, she takes a knife. That's a giant knife also I think she's eating a bowl of noodles. Like, why did you pick up that one? Because it was already on her plate. She had already given herself, a fork and a knife. She didn't go over and get a bigger knife. And I was like, that's a giant knife, man. Anyway, she takes that knife and she tries to go onto the bridge, basically, and kill Marco. But we see that Philip stops her, and while he's dragging her off the bridge there, he says he saved her life for bringing her here. And of course, Naomi is a really shrewd character, and she makes that connection immediately that the code that she had created for the Augustin Gamora that blew up that ship must have been planted on the Roci. So she steals Sin's phone and calls Jim to warn him. Now, it's a good thing that Jim answered that call, because I don't know about you, but I get a ton of spam calls these days, and I just do not answer. So if he was like me, I guess we would have blown up. But there's a lot I wanted to say here about the engineer Sakai, or Sakai, I guess is how you pronounce her name. Anyway, a lot of the stuff that I was thinking about when I wanted to talk about her and the interrogation, basically, it's really going to stray heavily into book spoilers. So what I'm going to do about this is I'm going to write down all these thoughts and save them, so that if at some point in the show it becomes non-spoilery for me to go ahead and talk about all these things that came up when I was thinking about her character, then I will go ahead and, use them in another episode. If that means I have to hang on to them until season 6 wraps, then that's what I'll do. But all the things really do that I want to say about her really does, it just strays hardline down into spoilers for books 6, 7, and 8. So I didn't want to completely ruin anybody's enjoyment of the show or reading of the books, so I'm just going to save those thoughts for later. Okay, so that leaves us to wrap up with Melba and Amos escaping the prison. So they did survive that initial blast, which is great, but they're still trapped underground. And that is extremely scary. Like I said in last episode, you are basically buried alive. But Amos comes up with a good plan with the guards and the other prisoner, Konachek, the one he calls Tiny. And they set to work climbing up the ladder. Now, I didn't look at all of the levels. Were there only like 9 or 10 levels that they have to climb up? Still, that's a lot. Because I believe he did get off at 9, but if you like paused it right there to see how many levels it is they have to climb up, let me know. Now, when the guard Sully falls, Did you think he fell off on accident because of his bad knee, or do you think Tiny threw him off and he's already planning his escape? Because I'm 100% in the camp that Tiny went ahead and threw him off of there because he's already doing calculus in his head, thinking about what happens when I get to the top and how many of these guards can I kill off, before I get there, before they decide to go and shoot me. I think he's already planning his escape there. Because as we see, when they do get to the top, Tiny goes ahead and kills another guard. So Amos tries to stop him, but again, Tiny is one of those prisoners who has those body modifications, and he just has superhuman strength, so Amos can't really do too much, physically to stop him, and the female guard, she helps, shoots him a couple times, and then Amos very poetically tosses him back down the elevator shaft. So Amos and Melba are now free. Woohoo! Where do you think they should go now? Do you think that they should go back to Baltimore? Do you think they should try and wait it out on Earth somewhere? Do you think Amos is going to stay on the planet? Him and Melba together. Are they going to try and leave the planet? What are your thoughts? Where do you see them going? What do you see happening to them? Overall, this was another solid episode for the season. I don't know that there has been an episode that has been filler or weaker than the others this season. It is constant, hitting you with more. So I don't know. I don't have a standout episode yet either. I've been really impressed with all of them so far, that they've all just been another solid outing. I think they're doing a really good job of hitting it out of the park. I think it's, again, a really good job to have the authors of the books working on the show, and then to have a lot of investment and buy-in from the actors and from any other writers that help them, and the producers. Like, everyone's bought in and really wants this to succeed and do a good job. Not necessarily that any job that they do, that they don't want it to succeed as a director and author or things like that, but sometimes on a show, I think you can tell that the writers don't really care. They're just, they got hired to maybe do this episode, and then they've got to try and go find another one. There's not like buy-in and investment into the story. And sometimes, like the actors, maybe you can tell that it kind of looks like they're phoning it in. They're not really invested in the story as much as you, the viewer, might be, which, for better or for worse, it happens. But I think that this show is really great and has a really great team and crew around it, from everyone down to just the driver who picks up somebody and brings them to the set. It's every single person is doing a really fantastic job on this show. So those are my thoughts for this episode. Let me know what you thought and where you think everybody's storyline is going to go from here. Now, don't forget about the poll. I reposted it on Twitter. I'm going to leave it open for one more week. So again, the poll is going to be, what are we going to review after The Expanse Season 5? The choices are Away, Altered Carbon, or Travelers. And right now, Travelers is in the lead. And I'm going to leave the poll open again for another week. And then on next week's episode, with episode 6, I will announce the winner. If you listened to WandaVision before this, in our review there, Patrick is expecting that you all vote Travelers. So I also have some in-person votes for Travelers, and I believe it's probably going to be Travelers, but if you're really invested in Away or Altered Carbon, drum up all of your friends, get them over to Twitter and have them all vote, because you could still swing this. You still have a week. So that's it from me for today. As always, you can always email me at thelesliemondaypodcast@gmail.com, and you can find all of my social media links at my website, lalunsford.com. That's lalunsford.com. And be sure to come back next week for The Expanse Season 5, Episode 6, and the announcement of the winner, the show that we will be watching after The Expanse. Until next time.